Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heave is gone. Memphis on top. 7 tenths remaining. Conley now a three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Jamorant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish, and I'm joined today by Brevin Knight. Brevin, good morning. How's the offseason going?
Good morning. It's going well. A lot of golf, and luckily we've had some really nice spring weather here in Memphis that we are normally not accustomed to, especially for this length of time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I live in Nashville, also enjoying the much milder, nicer weather we're currently doing. Is that your entire offseason? Just golf? Do you have other? That's it?
No. Golf, family time, golf, a little bit of travel, but a lot of relaxation. I'm a under the radar type guy. I'm fine with going off into obscurity and enjoying some downtime.
Are you still locked in with the playoffs? Like, are you still watching the games?
Oh yeah. I watch the games every night. Still engaged with the game. Stay engaged with that. It becomes a golf off season for me. A little WNBA.
Yeah.
But a lot of just not having to be in anyone's spotlight is fine for me.
Perfect. Well, I'll ask you a little bit about the games in a second, but I want to tell you, I'm really excited to talk with you specifically because you were on one of my favorite video game teams of all time. When I was in college, you were on the Cavaliers, and randomly the Cavaliers had my favorite NBA player at the time, which was Wesley Person. And so I played so much NBA Live. I want to say it was NBA Live 2000. I played so much of it with it was you, like Bob Sura, Sean Kemp. Yeah, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, current Grizzlies assistant, Vitaly Potapenko. Like, I was playing him in a video game. You were so good in real life and on the video game at Steals, and I was just having you feed West Person. That's all I was doing. That's all my college was playing as the Cavaliers.
Well, I'll tell you this much. That's what my Cavalier days were. Continue to find drive, force a double team somewhere with Kemp, and we're going to find West on the opposite side. And he was a menace to teams from the three-point line. A guy that people don't talk a lot about as being such a great shooter, but one of the greatest shooters in the game.
He's such a great shooter, and he's one of those guys where there's so many great shooters who had like amazing accuracy back in the day. I think of like Brent Barry or something, where like if they played today, where coaches were like, please shoot 12 to 14 three-pointers a game. You know, back then it was just like, you shot 5. Yeah. You were like, that guy's out of control, you know? It was an
inside out game. It is a outside inside game now.
That's right. Or just outside sometimes. Also, it's fun. So I think most Grizzlies fans, most of my listeners and most viewers of the games on Bally's, like, they know you played for the Grizzlies, you know, before you became your color commentator. I don't know how many. I'm curious, what % do you think know that you were in the Pau Gasol trade?
Very few. Even though I tell everybody I was the reason why the deal was able to happen. Yeah. Even though really I had nothing to do with it. I'm going to continue to stand on that leg that it was because of me and Lorenzen Wright.
That's right.
That deal was able to happen.
It wasn't. They're like,
God
listen,
rest his soul.
Yeah, they're like, listen, Pau's a good prospect, but if we can't get back a couple of solid guys, we need Brevin Knight, we need Lorenzen Wright, or we're out.
And then the deal is off.
So I have like a deep cut question. We'll get to the current Grizzlies in a second. I don't care. I have a deep cut question about your early days in Memphis.
Okay.
So I was a fan. I was like, before the Grizzlies announced they were coming to Memphis, I just cheered for whoever. I kind of like the Suns. I kind of like the Pistons. I played with the Cavaliers on NBA Live, like whatever. When the Grizzlies announced they were coming, I'm like, cool, Memphis, that's in Tennessee. This is my team. I'm excited. But the early season, the first season on the Grizzlies, I'm watching them. And this is, I think, my first experience as a fan where I picked a guy on the bench of my favorite team and was like, why doesn't that guy play more? I want him to play more. And I want you to tell me, in your estimation, and maybe you don't want to comment, but in your estimation, here's what I'm talking about. Antonis Fotis.
I knew it.
I'm watching this guy, and maybe I watched the proper blowout game where he came in and he started cleaning up, but I'm sitting there, and this is before the internet, basically. There's no Twitter. There's no social media.
Yes.
There's not even sports talk radio talking about the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm just talking to my friends, and I'm like, why doesn't Antonis Fotis play more? So in your estimation, Brevin, did Fotis play enough? Did he get enough opportunity?
He did not play enough.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were ready for his style of play at that point in time.
Yeah.
But another big issue was he was very unhappy and homesick.
Gotcha.
He was very homesick. So
okay.
you got to think about, he was a 19, I think he was still young. He wasn't one of the older guys to come over and play. He was a young guy. And so being a young player coming over to this country and then coming to Memphis, that was a totally different living style, totally different mindset for him. And so it was incumbent upon us to try to make him feel as at home as possible. But I thought that he never was able to have that connection. And because he couldn't have that connection, I don't think we could see the consistent play. Listen, he was on my teams in practice.
Yeah.
We were the second team.
Okay.
I loved him.
Yeah.
His game was fantastic. You're talking about the ability, the Euro steps, the different shot angles that he's able to score, just the way that he moved on the floor. If you think about it, he was what everyone is looking for today. 6'8", 6'9", wing player that can put the ball on the floor, can defend multiple positions, gives you a little bit of a big body. But when you start to go down this road, I knew that was the name that you were going to bring up.
Has anyone ever asked you about him before?
But we've talked about all of those people that are basketball enthusiasts that get. We've talked about Fotis a number of times because it had nothing to do with was he talented enough to be on the floor. He just could never be comfortable enough.
That makes sense.
I thought with being here in America for us to see him on a consistent basis.
He's also a guy who has popped up. If you watch. Like I've watched random Eurobasket, Euro League, Olympics, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, it's Fotis. And he was super young because he played for forever. He played for Greece for forever. And I'd be super excited. It was like, I want to say not that long ago, it was like Nick Kalathis and Fotis playing together. And I'm like, these are my Grizzlies guys. these are my deep cut Grizzlies guys.
How about that Kalathis one came out of nowhere. We was like, oh, Kalathis all of a sudden. And now he's just taking off with playing with the Greek national team.
Yeah. I want to say he won, I believe, EuroLeague with Barcelona a year ago. No, that's great. Thank you for humoring my question about Fotis. Here's what I think happened. I think the Grizzlies were whatever. They cleared the bench into one game. I saw him make one behind the back pass and knock down one 3-pointer, and I'm like, that guy. Why don't we have that guy playing? So that's probably what happened. Let's talk about these current Grizzlies. Obviously, the season didn't end how they wanted. What are you seeing from this Grizzlies team as far as like they're having these road struggles in the playoffs? And maybe it is just a talent, maybe just missing Steven Adams, but 2 seasons in a row now, the team struggled badly on the road. And of course they were the 2 seed, the higher seed in each of these series, talking about the Lakers and against the Warriors. What are you seeing from the Grizzlies on the court that you think, all right, this is the next step they need to make to be able to overcome? Is it just the offensive struggles when they play road playoff games?
Number one, you talked about 2 teams that were championship caliber teams that they played against in these playoff series. And so uncanny opponents that you're having to beat and overtake that have been there, done that before. So you can't overlook who they're playing as to being as much of a reason why they didn't move forward as what they did not do on the floor. Injuries have hurt them for 2 years in those instances. And going and winning on the road is hard. The same way this Grizzlies team was dominant at home this year with only losing 6 games, I think, through the regular season, is the same way other teams feed off of their crowds on their home floors. And it takes maximum efforts, low mistakes, maximizing what you do well to be able to win during the regular season. In the postseason, all of those things become heightened. And so it is a learning experiences that this team has to continue to go through to understand what it takes to win games on the road, to how to keep yourself in a basketball game, to give yourself a chance to win, because that's all road games are forcing the opponent to be uncomfortable in their home environment. How do you make them uncomfortable? Stay in the basketball game. Make their fans be on edge. Not is this the nervous clap. It's not the same energy. And if you can do that, then you put yourself in a position to win. But I think it's just continuing with this process. Still a young basketball team that has achieved a lot of success early. But there has to be experiences that then get you to where they ultimately want to get to.
What do you think Jaren specifically maybe needs to add to his game, or just have his further development? Because he specifically, if we just isolate these road games the last couple of seasons, he's really struggled putting the ball in the basket.
Well, for him, he has to be more assertive, a little bit more, play with a little bit more confidence on the road, understand that you are as important to the outcome in every game as anyone on the basketball team. His conditioning will have to get better, because you want to play long. And we're just talking about, I'm just keeping this to the playoffs. What you do during the regular season, get yourself ready for this. But in the playoffs, you're going to play longer stretches in basketball games. Your usage is going to be a lot higher in those situations. The stress level, the stakes are high. So all of that combined, that is what forces you on the interior. Things get going a little bit faster. So you have to work on making sure that conditioning while he's ready to go, and then have the moves that he knows he can do and go to that are his moves. But it'll sound redundant here, but for him, he went from a guy that was just a part of it to then now transferring into being a guy they say, you're a go-to player for this basketball team. And for players, there's a transition period. And I thought that we saw that transition year for Jaren.
Yeah.
Now it's time for him to build on it as they move forward.
Yeah, huge strides, obviously, for Jaren this year. I mean, defensive player of the year, made the all-star team, was scoring in bunches at the end of the regular season. We saw that offensive game really flourishing. One of the main storylines or takeaways from this season, and I guess that you can't discuss the Grizzlies season without mentioning it, is these off-the-court distractions. And specifically, even in the Lakers series, you had, beyond like jamorant's situation, all the stuff he's dealt with and is dealing with, like you had Dillon Brooks, making headlines for calling out LeBron James. What's your opinion or your perspective as a former player? Like, does that poking the bear, the bulletin board material for the other team, talking trash, like how much of that does that actually affect the locker room and maybe fire up the other team?
It always plays a part in anything. Like, man, this is in normal life. If somebody brings your name up or you get talked about, then that urges you along. That kind of builds a fire in you. If you're a competitor. If you're not a competitor, then you kind of just let it go. And so in the instance of this team, I think it was nothing different than what Dillon has been his entire career. The things just didn't go our way in terms of the team winning the series, him having individual success. And so now you can look back and say, oh, maybe shouldn't have done that. Well, but that's who they are. That is how he has carried himself his entire career. So I wouldn't expect for him to change once they got to the playoffs. At the end of the day, the only thing that happened was didn't have individual or team success. And when you don't have individual or team success, now everyone has the opportunity to nitpick everything. And so that is just that's the nature of guys that talk. I was a talker. Some days you're going to be the talker. Some days people are going to have the opportunity to talk to you. And this was an instance where, because the Lakers won, they were the better team. They had the better individual performances. They have the opportunity to talk. And in that, as the talker, you just have you take it, you file it away, and you get ready for next season.
Do you have any memory that sticks out from your playing career where you did the Dillon or the Grant Williams on Jimmy Butler, where you're like, whoops, I shouldn't have poked that beehive or poked that bear?
No, because I think what mine was, it was just all a part of the game. And so were there instances, there could have been instances in every game where something like that happened. Know why? Because you still got the ultimate confidence in yourself. Now, I know exactly. I know. Now you may look back and be like, maybe that wasn't the right time to do it. Maybe I could have done it. But you can't turn off and on who you are. Then you're not being true to who you are. Yes, understand time and situation. You don't want to hurt your team. But the way that blood boils is what makes those guys as good as it is the things that for guys like us, when you go walk, when you're close to that line, it also sometimes takes you over the line. But you are good because you walk that line, and that's what inspires you.
Gotcha. I want to ask you a question about Desmond Bane, but before that, we'll take a quick break. Download the brand new official Grind City Media mobile app. Explore new ways to access your favorite Grind City Media content, from your favorite shows and series to news and entertainment. Stay connected with exclusive content at your fingertips with the new Grind City Media mobile app, available in both the Apple and Google Play stores. All right, so Brevin, I made a player comparison for Desmond Bane, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm curious, from your playing career or anyone in NBA past, is there a player that Desmond Bane reminds you of, or his game reminds you of?
You made me think. There is, and for me, that guy is Joe Dumars in some way.
Ooh, love it.
And so why I say Joe Dumars is quiet at how they go about their business, but there is still that internal fire that gets them going. They are always the guy who is there every night. They give you whatever you need on the floor, but they're not always going to be the flashy name guy, but they're always going to be the substance guy. And that's what I see from Desmond Bane as his career goes. He's always going to be the substance guy for this Grizzlies team or wherever he plays moving forward. Today's game, I kind of like him to all the guys that move, Klay Thompson, guys that move. I think he can be very good at also moving without the basketball, which is something that's a little bit of a lost art. Guys that move well without the ball, but can also have a level of putting the ball on the floor. And so if he continues to work his ball handling, something he works on it to keep getting better at that, but he's going to have a very good career.
Yeah, he's the guy I think all of us Grizzlies fans are anticipating being the third all-star on this Grizzlies team. I love the comparison to Joe Dumars. I did a podcast last summer where I was highlighting the players that, like, if you just compared their stats from their first two seasons and looked into the third season and you compared even their draft pedigree, like where they went, like Joe Dumars was one I highlighted, like, what if he turns into Joe Dumars, and how good will that be for the Grizzlies team? Like, my dream for Ja and Dez, it's like, if that's Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, man, that's the dream. There's another guy. So Joe wasn't the exact guy I was thinking of. Another guy I compared his stats to, and at least the way his career has gone as far as being taken later in the draft, he reminds me a lot of Michael Redd. Like, what do you think about a comparison with Michael Redd, a guy that you faced up against many times?
Well, and a guy that I had an opportunity to play with for one playoff season. I got on my many travels.
Yeah.
In the NBA, when I played with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
And had an opportunity to play with them. And so, but just in a short span of time. And again, yes, and may even be a better comparison than the Joe Dumars, because I remember Michael Redd at least going coast to coast, dribbling the basketball and doing things at time to time. Don't remember how much Joe Dumars did it. Not to say that he didn't do it, but I remember him more as running a wing and being in that fashion. But the Michael Redd comparison, and if he can be what Michael Redd was for that Bucks organization and how well he played, then this Grizzlies organization, this fan base will be extremely happy with Desmond Bane's career.
Yeah. So looking at the playoffs right now, where you have the Nuggets have punched their ticket to the finals, and the Heat are ahead of the Celtics 3-1 in their series as we talk on Wednesday. Are there any lessons you think for the Grizzlies as far as organizational team building that they can take from the Nuggets' success or the Heat success, or do you think it's all so many unique situations for every team?
Well, every team is unique. I think the one thing that I took away from this playoffs as I watched the last four teams was that these are all veteran guys on this basketball court. It's not a lot of young guys on this court that are making the impacts at this point in the season. And so it's not to say that young guys don't win, can't win, but what does win is the combination of the two. I don't think you just go off one way now. These teams have been able to assemble some players later in the season. They've kept some guys together, and they've grown together. But I think the ability to see the veterans of basketball still have a say in what happens in wins and losses is fun to watch. But also the good thing is just the team aspect of basketball, I think, is what we have been able to see in these playoffs to this point. The Miami Heat have a dominant star in Jimmy Butler, but they still move the basketball. Everybody plays together. They're on a string on the defensive side. The collective is what makes them good. The Denver Nuggets, yes, they have Jokic and Murray. Those are the two go-to guys. But the ball moves. Those guys get the ball in different areas of the floor. It's not just top of the floor, pick and roll every single time. They run it at different angles. And so to watch them play, even watching the Lakers play, yes, they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but we saw in our series that Austin Reeves can be good, Hachimura, and those guys can be good because the ball moves, they touch it. It's not just an afterthought of, well, those two guys played, it didn't work, 6 seconds now, I'll throw you the ball, make a shot. That's not how they play the game. Celtics the same way. And so I think the biggest things I've taken away is the combination of having young talent, but also mixing in veteran guys on your teams if you want to have a true chance of winning championships, but also moving the basketball, getting the ball to guys in different areas of the floor, and hopefully you start to see more of that. We've seen it not just be big three basketball teams. We've seen more team aspect in that way. And so hopefully now that ball movement starts to become a bigger thing for all teams.
Yeah, I think one of my takeaways watching that Heat Celtics series is just the purpose and activity the Heat have on offense, where it is every time when Max Strus catches the ball, he seems to know what he's going to do. He's running towards the basket when he catches the ball, and he keeps applying pressure to the Celtics. And like Caleb Martin seems to be Caleb's shooting a little bit above his head on his percentages, but like he's getting good looks. And like the way the Heat's offense is just like everyone knows what they're doing. And it's this cohesive team, totally in sync, where you feel like maybe the Celtics aren't doing it as much, where like somebody, if Jaylen Brown doesn't get his shot, there's a beat, and then he passes the ball. And then, but on the other side, the Heat are like, nah, man, like they're going to press in transition and they're going to get there and go. And if they don't get it, all right, maybe you give it to Jimmy or Kyle to bail you out at the shot clock. But other than that, like the way the Heat are just moving, it's like night and day for me, where I'm like, that team is locked in. Like that's a 5-man unit.
I think the other thing that when you say that, that's when you talk about away from the ball action. Even if you put your two best guys in action, the other three guys, you still want there to be some type movement. And if there is some type movement, then that makes those two guys' job a little easier, that people can't just sit and watch. And I think that's what we're seeing these teams do a good job of. Yes, your star players are still going to get the shots. The ball's going to be in their hands. But how they get there, what type shots are they able to get in? And they've been able to create – Miami has been able to create better shots for themselves than what Boston has been able to do.
Yeah. And I do think most of us feel like that's one of the next steps for the Grizzlies when we watch them, like we talked about already, and those playoff losses where you feel people sagging off of everyone but Ja. And like if Ja drives, there's three guys there, and it's like, all right, yeah, we got to hit shots, but also if the guys off the ball are just stationary and just standing around, they become much easier to defend. So hopefully that's something the team can address going forward in the next season. To wrap up, Brevin, you mentioned you played for several teams in your NBA career. A lot of the teams you played for, in my opinion, talking about their jerseys. This is all I want to talk about. Their jerseys at the time maybe weren't the most popular jerseys. They weren't viewed as like the hottest item to own, but me on my specific age, now I look at all these jerseys from the 2000s and I feel nostalgic towards all of them. Like I'm obsessed with the Bobcats, like the orange Bobcats jerseys. I'm like, these are amazing. And you played, were you on the first year of the Bobcats?
I was there. I was the Bobcats the first 4 years that they were there. So
you're an all-time great Charlotte Bobcat.
I think I'm just a Charlotte Bobcat. The first 3 years that they were in, not the first 4. I'm just a Bobcat.
You're I love it.
I enjoy my time. I love those uniforms, and I loved playing with all underachievers. Overachievers. Bunch of guys who people thought Castaway shouldn't be here. I just went out and played hard. We had fun.
So what is, to finish up my long preface to a question, what is the favorite jersey as far as the way it looks that you ever wore? What do you think is the best looking jersey you wore in your career? What would you be the most excited maybe if it came back in an upcoming season?
If the Hornets did all of a sudden throwback to the Bobcats, I loved our orange Bobcats with I have no idea. There it is right there. There it is.
There's your little Bobcats
logo. That's my logo right there.
Yeah.
And I got to wear 22. So that's what I love. But I also love the Cleveland Cavaliers, though, the shark tooth, the blue ones.
Oh, yeah.
Those uniforms I thought were good. But I was number 12 because Larry Nance refused to let me bring the 22 down so I can use it before we put it back up again. So that was not nice of him.
Can you tell me, how did you end up on the original Bobcats? You were was that a free agent where you said this is where I'm going to go next in my career?
I was it was where I said I could only go. Man, it sucks. My career was dead at that point. And Bernie Bickerstaff had a relationship with my agent Bill Strickland and gave me an opportunity to come to training camp. That was his, like, I can let him come to training camp and we'll see what happened. And return that training camp, that training camp opportunity into 3 of my better seasons in the league.
Well, that's great. Well, Brevin, thanks again. Thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed talking with you, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
No, good talking with you. I'd love to come back again.
Thanks, Brevin.